crossplay promised to, unite gamers, but often it just sparks more. Well, let's call it spirited debate.
Uh-huh.
Definitely spirited.
Today, we're diving deep into that friction, the persistent stuff between PC and console players when they end up in the same online worlds.
Right. And we're using a specific source for this, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. A podcast episode called Cross-Platform Chaos, Why PC Gamers Hate Console Noobs. It featured one host who is big into PC gaming.
The enthusiast.
And another who was more of a console advocate, kind of the peacemaker.
Okay. Sounds like a good setup for the debate.
Totally. So if you've ever felt that platform prejudice yourself or just wondered what's really fueling these digital skirmishes, well, that's what we're unpacking.
And it's interesting how personal it gets, right? It's not just about the machine you use. It feels like it's tied to your identity as a gamer sometimes.
For sure.
And this Source podcast, it tackles that, but thankfully with a bit of humor too, which you probably need for this topic. Definitely need humor here. Okay, so the core issue. Why this huge divide, this sort of Grand Canyon between PC and console gaming when they meet online?
Well, the source laid out the main arguments pretty clearly.
Good on.
From the PC perspective, like the enthusiast host argued, it's all about, raw power, customization.
Right, tweaking settings, getting everything just so.
Exactly. And the precision you get with a mouse and keyboard, that's a big one. Plus performance advantages, higher frame rates, maybe better graphics. The ceiling is just higher, generally speaking.
Okay, makes sense. And the console side, what was their angle?
So the other host, the console advocate, focused on, well, different priorities. Ease of use, number one.
Plug and play.
Totally. No messing with drivers, checking hardware compatibility. You just turn it on and it works. Usually.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the comfort of the controller, which lots of people prefer. And yeah, the cost. Consoles are often, cheaper up front.
So fundamentally different philosophies, really.
Exactly. And that difference is kind of where the trouble starts in crossplay, according to the source.
Right. And the PC enthusiast in the source, he really hammered on the hardware imbalance, didn't he? That feeling of unfairness.
Yeah. He used that analogy like racing different classes of cars together. That feeling that someone has a built-in advantage or disadvantage just because of the box they're playing on.
Which I guess leads us straight into the whole noob label.
Bingo! That often comes from the PC side aimed at console goers. The Source podcast explored why.
And it's mostly about skill or perceived skill.
Often, yeah. Especially in competitive games like shooters. The PC perspective is often, look, I've spent ages mastering mouse aiming.
And this console player is getting help. Is that the idea?
Kind of. They point to aim assist on consoles.
Aim assist. Always controversial.
Always. So from that PC viewpoint, it can feel like the game's doing some of the work for the console player. You can see why that'd be frustrating if you value raw mechanical skill.
But the console counter-argument.
The console advocate presented it as, well, necessary. An aid to make up for the fact that aiming precisely with thumbsticks is just harder.
More difficult than a mouse. Yeah.
Right. So they see it as a balancing tool, not, an I win button.
That distinction's important.
It is. And what was also interesting in the source was that noob isn't always just about aiming skill.
Well, what else?
Sometimes it's frustration with players, maybe console or PC, who don't seem to get the strategy or the unwritten rules of competitive play.
The team objectives, maybe.
Yeah, things like that. But the console advocate also made a really good point.
Yeah.
Not everyone is trying to be esports level competitive.
True. Some people just want to hop on and relax.
Exactly. They just want to have fun after work or whatever. That gets overlooked sometimes.
Yeah, in the heat of a match, definitely. Did the Source podcast share any specific stories from listeners?
They did, yeah. Some examples of these clashes. There was one anecdote about a PS5 player.
Okay.
Who got called a bot by their PC teammate at the start of a match. Like, total dismissal.
Ouch.
But then, the PS5 player actually ended up carrying the team, performing way better than the PC player who insulted them.
Huh. Okay, so much for the stereotype in that case.
Right. It shows skill isn't just platform dependent. And someone else apparently commented, reminding everyone that PC gamers didn't invent gaming.
Oh, a history lesson.
Yeah, a nod to Pong and the whole console history that came way before PC gaming was mainstream. Just adds perspective,
Definitely. Okay, so the Source then moved into some myth-busting, trying to separate fact from fiction.
Yeah, they tackled a few common generalizations head-on.
Like what?
Well, the big one. Console players are just worse.
And their take?
Basically, that skill comes from practice, dedication, time spent playing, not the plastic box under your TV or the tower on your desk.
Makes sense. What else?
They also unpacked the aim assist equals aimbot thing.
Yeah, the comparison.
They stressed that aim assist gives subtle help, nudges your aim maybe, but it's absolutely not the same as an actual aimbot that snaps perfectly onto targets. Understanding that difference is pretty key.
Right, nuance is important there. Did they talk about cost?
Yep. They acknowledged, you can build a budget PC these days.
Sure.
But consoles still generally have that lower barrier to entry cost-wise.
Yeah.
Just simpler to buy and get going for many people.
Okay. And the big one. Does crossplay ruin games?
Their conclusions seem to be, no, not inherently. Balancing is crucial, obviously. Developers need to work on that. But overall, having bigger player pools because of crossplay, that's generally a good thing for the health and longevity of games. More people to play with.
Okay, so if crossplay isn't inherently bad, but there's all this friction, how do we fix it? Did the source offer solutions?
They did discuss potential paths forward. One idea that kept coming up was input-based matchmaking. Matching controller players against other controller players and mouse and keyboard players against other mouse and keyboard players, regardless of whether it's PC or console.
That seems pretty logical, actually. Takes the control scheme difference out of the equation somewhat.
Yeah, it addresses that core disparity directly. They also mentioned just the need for better optimization.
Developers making sure the game runs well everywhere.
Pretty much. A smoother experience on all platforms helps level the playing field in terms of performance hiccups.
And probably reduces frustration overall.
You'd hope so. And then, more broadly, just tackling toxicity in general.
Yeah.
Being less horrible to each other online, regardless of platform.
That feels like a whole separate deep dive.
Probably. But it's relevant here, too.
It was funny, though, even while suggesting solutions, the source hosts still had that little bit of platform rivalry, right?
Oh, yeah. The PC guy jokingly said console players just need to get good. And the console advocate shot back something like, maybe everyone should just appreciate that both platforms have their good points. Still that playful antagonism.
So, wrapping this up then, this dive into the source material, this cross-platform chaos, what's the main takeaway?
I think it's that there's no simple answer, It's not like PC is better or console is better.
Right.
It's this complex mix.
Yeah.
Hardware capabilities, how we actually control the game, what we expect when we log on, and these sort of tribal identities we build around our gear.
Yeah, those community dynamics are powerful.
For sure. And lots of people play on both, right? It's not always strictly one camp, but the differences between the platforms and how people use them, that's where the conflict sparks when they get mixed together in crossplay.
So it leaves us, and you listening, with a question, I suppose. Given these real differences, hardware, controls, even player goals sometimes, can these communities ever truly coexist peacefully in the same game lobbies? Or is there always going to be that undercurrent of rivalry? Maybe friendly, maybe not so?
Yeah, it makes you think about your own experiences, doesn't it? Where do you actually stand when you jump into a cross-play match? Food for thought.
Yep.